Hi, my name is Peter. I'm 22 years old, and for the past 8 years, I've been living on the road and off the grid with my family, documenting our journey on our YouTube, The Epic Family Road Trip. Today, I'm sharing my adventures on my own channel, The Adventure Guys. My dream is to show you the remote places of the world by land, air, and sea, and to one day buy some land and build a homestead. Good morning, everyone. Quite a beautiful one, really. It's about 6:30. Sun just rose, and it gives a good perspective on where we're camped. It's quite an incredible little spot. The whole area surrounding it and the island itself looks really beautiful. I really wish I had time to explore it now. This will probably be a place I come back to very shortly, because not only is it a great camp, we slept peacefully through the night, no bumps or crazy gusts or waves coming through. We stayed anchored all night and get to wake up to this sort of beautiful scenery that you can't really get doing anything else. Can't get traveling any other way. We live on an island on a lake. We have traveled, around lakes and oceans before, but to travel by boat somewhere and then camp out on a boat is something entirely different. So the sun rising now, the wind's starting to pick up. It's calling for about 8 knots right now, which is some good wind. I think it's coming from same direction, like it's coming from southwest roughly. I'm gonna get this coffee going, fire up the jet boil. Brought 1 mug, so I'll have the first coffee and then wake Dan up and he can have the next one. But what a way to wake up in the morning. Super happy with the anchor. That was something, since we're pulling in the dark, I was unsure of whether it would actually work or not, or if I knew how to operate it correctly, and it of course was quite simple and worked effectively. So that was very, very nice. This camp turned out to be so much more than expected, and it really was exciting and painted a wonderful picture of what the future would hold with a sailing adventure. Okay, forward. All right, so we're underway. Just for today, the main part is getting out and around safely and away from all these rocks, because this place is beautiful, but 12 feet deep at most and extremely narrow on the way in, and apparently it's a limestone shelf that you get to, so it's not like you'll be hitting clay with your keel, it'll be stone. Not the most ideal of circumstances for the bottom of your boat. So yeah, that was overall an incredible time here, and I'll be back very soon. We're gonna try to make it back now today. The goal is to be back within an hour and a half or so. We'll see how the wind is. It's pretty calm and nice today compared to yesterday, but we still want to make it back in decent time so Dan can drive all the way to Toronto, cut some trees and load them up and bring them all the way back up today, which is quite a big deal since Toronto is like over 4 hours away. Sketchiest part of leaving is over with. Now on our way into the open. Make a good wide swing around the islands we came in beside in the dark, and safely set up sails towards Karne. So I was able to work the wiring on my auto helm and actually got it to run. So right now I have it in auto. It's trying to hold like 328 degrees and it's doing a good job. Sailing into Karne slowly but surely with this 5-knot wind. Just making our way there. It's beautiful being in this early daylight, being able to see the Lacloche Range as we've been able to see it over the last hour and a half coming from Ojig Island. It's been truly a sight, eh? Like we're rarely out on Georgian Bay. Even though we live in this region of the world, it's not often that you get to see these sorts of views. And it's something you guys got to come see one day for yourself, because Georgian Bay as a whole, which is a huge area, but Karne especially, and Karne Provincial Park, is really amazing. Got this ancient mountain range. It's like a couple billion years old, one of the oldest mountain ranges in the world, all worn down to almost nothing. And then the Lacloche Range here, beautiful white, like quartz and dolomite, I believe is the geology of it. Just shiny, gorgeous stuff. There's a mountain called Silver Peak. It's the biggest peak around here. You can hike it. There's a ton of amazing hikes that can range from, day hikes to 10-day hikes. And then of course, if you're out sailing or powerboating, you can go all over all these bays and islands and beautiful stuff. Even today here, I saw a sailboat back to the west, one way out in the east. I can see its sails kind of on the horizon. It's quite cool. So we're gonna start tacking our way towards the lighthouse and then motor on into the bay and get Dan on his way to Toronto and end an incredible time out sailing. With autopilot, this is like, for myself, this is really exciting, because if I don't have Dan to go up and fix problems, like when the furler isn't unfurling or furling up and something goes up with the mainsail gets caught or whatever, and I'm on my own, to be able to have the autopilot set it into the wind or whatever I need it to be set to, and it can hold it pretty well or very well, then I can actually run up, fix the problem myself, and then go back without the tiller flying all over the place and most likely having me fall overboard. This way, I can be sitting up here. I do have Dan in the cockpit just in case something goes wrong, but really, I'm trusting this autopilot to do its thing. I just gave it a heading, 323 degrees, and it's holding it steady. We're sailing beautifully. I mean, it's pretty cool. And then you can work freely on the boat. Now, I've got a PFD on. Preferably, you'd have a lifeline or something, because if I was solo, I definitely would. I actually don't have one rigged up right now, but that'll be something I do in the future. Because as a solo sailor, if you fall into the water, unlike a jet ski or something where you've got that wristband, or even a boat where you can wear those, where if you fall in, it's gonna hit the kill switch. There's no kill switch on a sail. So it's gonna sail, and especially with an autopilot on, it'll sail this way until the wind doesn't work for it, and then it'll eventually, either smash into a rock or just start freaking out in the water, and there's no way you're gonna catch it swimming. So, but for now, safely on here with Dan aboard as well. It's pretty cool to be sitting on the bow of a boat while she's sailing, and it's controlled by a non-human. It's my AI, even though it's not AI. Should probably give it a name, actually, my autopilot. That'd be kind of funny. It's like my co-pilot or first mate. Anyway, this is an amazing experience. So the mountains you see ahead are the Lacloche mountain range, and that's what Karne Provincial Park is really all about. It's these beautiful dolomite peaks and the pink granite that's everywhere as well. It's quite an incredible area. The water around here is also pretty much crystal clear, beautiful blue. It's really renowned for stuff you can do while on the water, like sailing,
and then of course power boats and jet skis and a lot of other stuff. It's just a wonderful place on the lake here. And then on top of that, inland, you've got so many good hikes and so many things you can do. Of course, there's 1,000 incredible lakes, including our own, in this region. There's beautiful wilderness and lots to explore. So it's quite an amazing area of the world. So getting into the bay here, the wind is directly at our backs and it's very, very soft, almost kind of intermittent, It like comes in and out. So I'm trying to do this butterfly rig. It's working pretty well. And we're slowly making our way, probably 2 knots, towards the lighthouse, towards Karne Channel there, and towards Dan's final destination. Well, not final destinations. So that you can start, the beginning of Dan's journey. It's also technically for me because with that first camp, that was a good taste test of what's out there and what it's like to sail and anchor. Now I want to go everywhere around here, spend multiple nights out and really take that kayak out and explore the islands I camp at or anchor at, fish maybe, and spend some time sailing. So see you guys in Karne as we slowly make our way. Made back to our slip safe and sound, and Dan's gonna pack up quickly and then we'll both head back in the Jeep. I'm gonna go back and basically resupply and then come back out to the boat and head out again. I don't have a destination in mind, so I might also use the time with the Wi-Fi at the island to quickly mark out a couple potential places and then start sailing. Hopefully find some more beauty out there. Of course, I know it's out there, so we'll take some real meals and go explore the rest of Georgian Bay. There's a lot to see. This could take, I mean, you could probably spend a year here and not see it all. So over the next month or 2 months that I have left to the season, I really want to explore as much as I can and, you know, gain experience sailing and everything else. So we'll see you guys then.
Well, we're back at the island. I was able to get Dan back in time to make it to the Jeep and get all the way down to Toronto, where he met up with the boys, some of our cousins down south, and they went to one of the properties there and were able to cut a bunch of trees and get quite a few logs, good ones that Dan's going to be using to build up the cabin which he's working on. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what he's working on, he is currently in the process of restoring one of the old cabins on our island. So on this 10-acre island, there are many cabins that were built in the 40s, late 40s, and they're all done by hand, kind of Scandinavian scribe or full scribe style log cabins. And this one in particular, which I'm walking up to, was a storage cabin of sorts, and kind of had fallen into disrepair over 80 years or so. So Dan has been working for the last few weeks on repairing it, and this is his progress behind me. So he is currently, you know, building log by log, scribing and notching his way back to a fully restored cabin. So he's got a few logs set up there that he's working on. He's got a few that he's peeled. That was from a previous load from down south. This is all red pine that he gets from that property and then works on peeling and notching into proper logs for the cabin. So that's like these ones here. And then the other ones are on our barge, which is what when they brought it up, we worked with our cousins and friends, and Dan, of course. I helped them carry some of the logs onto the barge, and then Dan barged them across to the lake, along with some firewood.
There she goes.
Make sure to give Dan's channel, Dan Van Stralen, a follow if you want to see more cabin building and island life.
Tightrope walk across these logs.
And also a huge thanks to our cousins and friends for all the help, and especially for the logs. Dan's project is certainly coming along nicely, and I'm excited to see what it looks like when it's all finished. So while we're back here on the island, I'm also resupplying, and with that I wanted to show you how I would do that. I'm just resupplying on some necessities like food, of course, and then some equipment and mapping so that I can go on a multi-night trip rather than just one quick trip out like what we did on the island there. I'd rather get to that island and maybe spend an entire day and another night there, so that way I can explore the area around where I'm camping and just enjoy being out on the sailboat a little more. So here in our shop we have the equipment that we can use to create food and other things that I can travel with easily in a sailboat, on a bike, on camping trips, and what we do in our truck and Jeeps when we do some overlanding trips that we've really started doing recently, using this epic machine behind me. So this is a Harvest Right freeze dryer. It's a pretty awesome tool. We got it a few weeks ago, or maybe a couple months ago, but we've really started using it in the last few weeks to freeze dry food. Cool thing about this is freeze drying, as some of you may know, preserves food as well as makes it extremely light. So I don't know the science of it, but essentially you are removing all the moisture content from food. So this jar is full of raw eggs, probably 2 to 3 dozen eggs. They're raw, uncooked eggs that get cracked, of course, put onto one of these trays, which fits in here. A tray like this. So all the liquid egg gets poured into this, the egg whites and yolks, and then goes into this machine here and gets freeze dried. So in here, freeze dry machine does what it does. It freezes it and then removes all the moisture with like a vacuum pump, which is below here. Really, really cool system that allows food to stay good for years and years. Even in a jar like this, in a mason jar that has all the oxygen sucked out of it, this will last up to 5 or 10 years. And then if it's put in a Mylar bag, which is something like what you buy at a store, so when you buy those like camping foods, they're in a bag, Mountain House and other brands, they're in Mylar bags and they can last 30 years. And that's like this here. So this is a zucchini lasagna, which my mom made, and it could last up to 30 years. And it's the full homemade meal, exactly as you'd make and eat in the same night. Then when you freeze dry it, put it in a bag, like I said, it can last for 30 years. Benefit of doing this is, one, we don't have to buy them because they get fairly expensive. They can be like $16 to $18 meals in a bag. And two, you're getting your own home-cooked meals. In my case, my mother's meals, which are incredible, or even meals that I make, you can freeze dry them and then take them with you on a trip, and you can trust the stuff that's in them. They won't have like 6,000 milligrams of sodium and some other stuff in it that you may not want to eat. And as you can see behind me, besides just the eggs,
There are tons of herbs, onions, and other meals in those mason jars, as well as a bunch of other mylar bags that my parents have been working on from our garden. A lot of the herbs like basil, thyme, etc. They've been freeze drying because we have an excess of those. This way they're preserved and we're able to use them for years to come, and then definitely over the coming months, especially as winter comes. And then for meals, we're just, whenever we have leftovers, and we also might make specific meals that we'll put in mylar bags, which we can then use on camping trips, whether it's in the truck, like when my parents go out, in the Jeeps when I go out, or on the bikes. And especially now in the sailboat, it's a very convenient way to pack a lot of food because it's very lightweight, very packable, and all you need is some water to rehydrate the meal for it to become a full, yummy, healthy, homemade meal.
Now for one of my favorite things to do before sailing, looking at maps. I've been using Navionics to chart and see what Georgian Bay has to offer. There's countless bays and thousands of islands, so much potential to explore. This app is particularly helpful, not only for navigation, but for wind, weather, tides, and many other things that are very important to look at when planning a sailing trip. I haven't yet found my spot, but while there's still light out, I'd like to go out and do something I've been wanting to do for the past few weeks. Riding an adventure bike was always a dream of mine, and a few years ago, my brother and I realized this dream of exploring on adventure bikes. This evening was one of my favorite rides.
Well, this has been fun. Just taking the bike out for a minute. It's been a while since we've had these out. As some of you may know, the original Adventure Guys was Dan and I on our bikes traveling on BDRs in the US, and we finally got them imported into Canada. That way we could have them year-round rather than on like our trips when we'd be out in the US for months at a time. But the only problem is we've been busy and not focusing on finishing all the importation paperwork, so it's been taking months rather than like a week or two to get all the forms filled out to get them certified and road legal in Canada. These are plated for Montana and legal there, but now that they're imported, we have to just make sure the Canadian government essentially just has to make sure there's no parts and stuff on it that aren't certified for Canadian roads, etc. So that's all gonna be done in the next week or so, and then we'll get them plated and be road legal in Canada, which will be awesome because there are so many adventures that I look forward to having on this 690 on Canadian off-road trails and roads and just adventures through Canada. My parents are currently doing the Great Canadian their own Great Canadian overland journey, where they're crossing the whole entire continent of Canada, or the entire country of Canada, from sea to sea, and it looks amazing. And they're doing the Trans-Canada Off-Road Trail, I believe it's called, and that was originally designed for motorcycles. So it's something Dan and I have been keeping our eyes on, and especially me with my bike. I really look forward to doing that one day, and some other trips sooner than that. So for now, I'm just taking it on the road here, getting it warmed up, making sure it still gets the love it deserves, and I really look forward to taking it out for real here soon. Well, it's a fun little evening ride. Good way to get the bikes warmed up. My chain looks like it flash rusted. Definitely all this time in storage and sitting there hasn't been too great on them, so that'll be something I'll have to clean and make sure it's still good to use and trustworthy for a big trip, or replace before we do a big trip. This was quite the evening. It was hard to drone and drive a bike, I gotta tell you. I thought I could do active track on our Mavic there, but it wouldn't track to me. I guess it was too small or something. So I was driving and flying. It's not ideal, but beautiful, beautiful evening. So yeah, I'll head back and keep looking over the maps, find a place to sail to and spend a couple days at on Georgian Bay this coming week.